Imagine sitting inside a jail cell knowing that everyone outside believes you're dangerous. You're accused of stalking a woman you've never even met. You're accused of sending her threatening emails and of creating disturbing Craigslist advertisements. Eventually, you're accused of trying to have her attacked. But there's something you know that nobody else seems to understand. You didn't do any of it. You gave police your phone, your computer, your tablet. You told them to look, and then another threatening message appears. Except your devices are sitting in police evidence. So who is sending the messages? And why does that person behind them know so much about you?
Welcome back to Coffee and Crime with Mom. I'm Nicholle, Mom.
And I'm Zalle.
Today's case is about a woman who went from being engaged and planning a future to leaving what she described as an increasingly abusive relationship to become the suspect in an elaborate stalking investigation.
And eventually she would spend 88 days in jail for crimes she didn't commit.
But we're not going to start with the arrest. We're going back to the beginning, because before the fake emails, before Angela, before Lilith's truth, there was Michelle and Ian. And understanding that relationship is essential to understanding everything that comes afterward. Before we begin, a quick content warning. Today's episode discusses domestic abuse, stalking, harassment, coercive control, sexual coercion, fabricated sexual assault allegations, and wrongful incarceration. Some of the allegations involve disturbing and emotionally difficult subject matter. We will discuss these events without graphic descriptions. If any of these topics are difficult for you, please take care of yourself while listening. And with that, let's go back to the beginning.
In October of 2013, Michelle Hadley met Ian Diaz online. Ian was a U.S. Marshal. Michelle was in her late 20s, and at first, according to Michelle's later recollections, the relationship felt like a fairy tale. Ian was attentive, they spent time together, they fell in love, and eventually they became engaged.
And that's important because when we tell stories about abusive relationships, it's easy to look backward and think, how could she not have known? But that's not necessarily how these relationships begin. Michelle wasn't knowingly walking into an abusive relationship. She believed she was building a future with someone she loved.
According to Michelle's account, Ian proposed in New York City. The engagement represented a future they were planning together. In roughly a year after they met, they were engaged. And sometime during this period, Michelle said something began to change. The relationship became more controlling. The changes weren't limited to one part of her life. Ian began expressing opinions about how Michelle should look, how she should dress, how she should present herself. Michelle has described Ian becoming increasingly interested in controlling her appearance. He wanted her to dress differently. He encouraged her to wear more revealing clothing, including crop tops. He wanted her to wear acrylic nails and more makeup. He wanted her to get a belly button piercing. He even suggested that she get a boob augmentation, a breast augmentation. I don't know why that sentence ate my ass up like that. And he even suggested that she get a breast augmentation.
And to be clear, there's nothing inherently wrong with crop tops. There's nothing inherently wrong with acrylic nails. There's nothing inherently wrong with makeup, piercings, or cosmetic surgery. The issue here is who's making the decisions. Michelle has described herself as someone who wasn't particularly interested in those things. So these weren't simply suggestions about fashion. She experienced them as pressure to become the woman Ian wanted her to be.
And that's an important distinction. He wasn't simply saying, here's something I think looks good. According to Michelle's account, these expectations became part of a larger pattern in which Ian increasingly dictated how she should look and behave. Current reporting, based on Michelle's account, describes the same pattern, including pressure around clothing, acrylic nails, a belly piercing, and even breast augmentation. Then came something much more invasive. When Michelle and Ian moved into their Anaheim condominium, Ian installed surveillance cameras inside the home. not just outside, inside. The cameras allowed him to monitor Michelle's movements. And according to Michelle's account, he could watch the camera feed remotely. And it's important for you guys to know that they had been together like around 6 or 7 months when Ian decided that he wanted to get a place together. She went along with it and they were supposed to be splitting, putting like the down payment down. And it was once they decided to get the house and everything had went through that Ian was like, well, I don't have the money for it. And so Michelle put all that money down, which was like $14,000.
Right.
So to push for all of this, then I pay for us to get this condo, and then you're controlling me, and you have cameras in here watching me.
Right. No. Think about that. Think about what that means. Home is supposed to be the one place where you don't have to perform for anyone. You close the door and you're alone. You change clothes, you relax, you sleep. But Michelle says that even inside her own home, she was being watched.
Yeah, and the surveillance wasn't an isolated behavior. Michelle described Ian monitoring her movements and communications. He would question where she had been. He would notice when she was late. He monitored her phone and computer. And according to later reporting, he downloaded information from her computer onto a portable storage device. Definitely stalker.
Definitely controlling. So the pattern becomes clear. He was influencing what she wore, how she looked, who she spent time with, where she went, and what happened inside the home. That is much bigger than an argument about clothing. That's control.
Yeah, and yes, and Michelle has also described Ian monitoring her schedule. If she was late getting home, he wanted to know why. He would send repeated messages. He showed up at her workplace unexpectedly, and according to her, he pressured her about her career as well. Michelle was pursuing an MBA at Chapman University. Ian encouraged her to quit her job and work at Disneyland instead. He had previously worked there. Michelle believed that his connections at Disneyland would make it easier for him to keep tabs on her. I mean, and then, okay, so let's just put this out there. Michelle was like 21 when they
Right.
first got together, okay? And she said she hadn't really had too many like serious relationships. And so she was
Mm-hmm.
very, what is it, impressionable. So it wasn't
Right.
hard for her to just get into the flow of kind of just letting him control whatever she had
Mm-hmm.
going on. So
Right.
very young
Definitely.
mindset, okay? Before we get to being like, judging her or whatever.
Right. And she even describes herself as like a goody two shoes. That's what she was. And that's what she was kind of looking for. And again, one behavior by itself can be dismissed. You're worried because she's late. You want your girlfriend to dress differently. You want her to work somewhere else. But when you put them together, you're seeing someone else's independence slowly being squeezed.
Yeah. And then there was another part of Ian's behavior. Ian wanted Michelle to have sex with other men. He wanted to watch and he wanted it recorded. According to Michelle, this wasn't something she wanted. She resisted. She told him she wasn't comfortable with it. And she almost was like, this is a deal breaker. We're not compatible because
Right.
that's not who she was at all. But
Mhm.
Ian,
But she also said that she was like, well, maybe this is what you do in adult relationships
right.
because she hadn't had that many relationships and she was very young.
Yeah. She just thought that this is what you do when, you want your man to be happy.
So unprofessional.
But Ian repeatedly pressured her. When Michelle traveled for work, he would continue bringing it up. He would text her and he would ask her to have sex with strangers. And according to later accounts of the relationship, Michelle eventually threatened to leave if he wouldn't stop. But the pressure continued. The federal court later described Ian as persistently badgering Michelle to indulge his sexual fantasies and begging her to have sex with strangers.
Right. And she was saying it was like it was her body, but he felt like he could use it however he wanted to.
Yeah, poor Michelle.
Yeah.
Eventually, Michelle gave in, and the circumstances matter. Okay. She was sick and she was taking cold medicine, NyQuil to be precise. She was taking NyQuil. Ian had arranged for a stranger he found through Craigslist to come to their home. I need you guys to keep in mind how often I am bringing up Craigslist. Pay attention. He found somebody through Craigslist to come to their home. Okay. According to the federal court record, Ian gave Michelle 3 shots of whiskey. He set up cameras in their bedroom and he watched and filmed from another room while the stranger had sex with Michelle.
I don't know what to say about that. We're not going to describe the sexual encounter itself, but we do need to understand what Michelle said about it afterward. She was traumatized. She wanted the recording destroyed, and she later told Ian that the encounter had felt like rape to her. According to the court record, Ian became angry when she described it that way.
She said that Ian told her while she was sitting there bawling afterwards that nobody put a gun to her head.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So basically, it's no reason for you to be sitting here crying because you willingly let me do this. And also told her that she needed to go to the doctor and get tested because the stranger's condom had came off.
The stranger's condom came off
while they were having sex. Yeah. Yeah. And when I said disgusting earlier, I don't mean disgusting as far as like somebody wanting to have maybe the stranger's part, that's a little weird, but to wanting to watch other people sleep with your partner.
Right.
If that's what you do and you want to record it, that's you. You know what I'm saying? To each their own. That's your house. But forcing somebody you know who does not want to participate into doing that and then dismissing her afterwards is what's disgusting.
It's very disgusting. You do what you want to do.
Yeah.
That your sexual choices are yours. As long as everybody's consenting, I don't want to know about it. But not only did he kind of push her into that, then he treated her like, it was nothing and she should calm down.
Yeah. And that reaction matters because Michelle wasn't saying I changed my mind about something I had freely wanted. She was describing the experience as something that had deeply disturbed and traumatized her. And remember, those cameras we talked about earlier, the cameras inside their home, now they have another context. Ian had already installed surveillance cameras in the condo. And then during this sexual encounter, he deliberately set up cameras to record what happened. So recording and surveillance weren't simply technical details. They were part of the control dynamic Michelle described. Yeah, then that's something that's hanging over my head because I know you have it. Whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter.
You can never fully relax because somebody is watching. So the home was being monitored. Her appearance was being managed. Her movements were being questioned. And now her sexuality was being controlled and recorded.
According to Michelle's account, the controlling behavior continued and controlled aspects of her daily routine. He dictated how much she drank. He disrupted her sleep. He would wake her during the night, and the resulting exhaustion affected her work. He also kept firearms in the home. Michelle found his possession of those weapons intimidating.
I'm sure. Again, we're not saying every allegation in a civil complaint was independently proven in a criminal trial, but there are allegations Michelle made, and they're important because they explain the relationship that she says she was trying to escape.
Eventually, Michelle reached a point where she couldn't continue. In August 2015, she left Ian. She moved out. She did this while his friend, his U.S. Marshal coworker, Leslie Carlson, was at the house. And she said while she was there, she just packed up everything she could fit in her car and she left because she knew Ian wouldn't do too much while his coworker was there. And that's how they broke up. It's important to keep that in mind. So she left and she went back to her parents. And according to the federal court record, she later experienced a trauma-related episode and was diagnosed with complex PTSD.
Good. Oh my goodness. But she had gotten out, at least physically. But there was one thing she couldn't simply leave behind. That condo.
In June 2015, Michelle and Ian had purchased an Anaheim condominium together. Michelle paid the down payment. The couple financed the rest with a mortgage of approximately $459,745. After Michelle left, Ian remained, and the property became a major point of contention. In November 2015, they entered into an agreement involving Michelle's interest in the condo and Ian's assumption of the mortgage. But Ian didn't complete the required mortgage assumption. So by June 2016, Michelle learned that his application had been denied, meaning he hadn't paid the mortgage through, and it wasn't, everything wasn't switched over to where it just belonged to him. So she then told him that she intended to enforce their agreement, which was putting the house on the market.
So Michelle is trying to move forward, but she still has a financial and legal connection to Ian. And that's when the next woman enters the picture.
And as he said before, in January 2016, Ian met Angela Connell. They connected online. Again, he met Michelle online. And the relationship moved very quickly. He said that she was everything he ever asked for, which is the same thing he said about Michelle. Are we seeing a pattern? By February, they were married, less than a month. Angela moved into the Anaheim condo, the same condo Michelle had helped purchase.
And that creates an incredibly complicated situation, to say the least. Michelle has just escaped a relationship she described as abusive. Her former fiancé has remarried. His new wife is now living in the home Michelle helped buy, and Michelle is still fighting over the property.
Eventually, then Angela announced she was pregnant. Then these messages started happening, and she said she had a miscarriage. Shortly after that, she was pregnant again, and she claimed she was carrying twins. But investigators would later determine that the pregnancies were fabricated. That discovery wouldn't happen until much later. At this point, though, Angela was presenting herself as Ian's new wife and expectant mother. The messages appeared to come from Michelle. They were personal. They referenced Ian, they contained religious language, and they became increasingly threatening. One identity connected to the communications was Lilith is truth. According to the federal case, Ian and Angela created and used falsely registered accounts as part of the scheme.
And here's what makes the impersonation believable. Michelle really had written emotional messages to Ian. She had really been angry. There was a real relationship. There was a real breakup. And there was still that condo dispute. So the person creating these messages had something to work with.
Yes, Angela went to the police. She reported the threatening communications, and she said Michelle was behind them, but Ian was the one who pushed the Michelle was behind them message. As soon as she got the messages, immediately his response was, it has to be Michelle. And the messages kept coming. He kept, making police reports, and every time the police came, Ian did most of the talking or tried to do what they would necessarily call coaching, where he was like speaking in the background trying to lead Angela in the direction of what was happening in the story.
And he was very emotional.
Very emotional. He called Michelle out of her name. He tried to get her arrested several times. And at one point during one of these incidences where they had the police come to the condo to report these emails, Ian told the police that Michelle was crazy. She was bitter behind all of this stuff, and that the reason why they broke up was because he found out that Michelle had cheated on him with 6 or 7 guys from Tinder, and he had his best friend over at the apartment for safety reasons. When he told her, either you need to figure it out and tell me the truth about all these guys you were sleeping with, or you need to leave. And he said that she just packed up her stuff and left. I told you guys how they broke up earlier. So this tells you this is just setting a stage of where the lies are. Yes. So after that, Michelle was served with a temporary restraining order. Suddenly, the woman who had left Ian was being portrayed as the woman who wouldn't leave him alone. Excuse me. Michelle denied sending the messages, and she didn't simply deny them. She asked investigators to examine the technology. She asked them to trace the IP addresses. She contacted Microsoft and law enforcement. She contacted Craigslist after learning the advertisements were being associated with her identity. She left Detective Michael Lee detailed voicemails, 3 detailed voicemails.
She was essentially saying, don't take my word for it. Check the evidence.
Yes, she was very worried. Like, I know I didn't do this. Somebody is framing me. Then the scheme moved beyond email. Craigslist advertisements began appearing. Some were sexual in nature, and they were designed to create situations that could later be blamed on Michelle. According to the federal case, a Craigslist advertisement linked to Ian's email account was part of the investigation. Investigators also discovered communications and advertisements connected to the Anaheim condo, including.
And this is where the story takes a disturbing turn because Ian had already used Craigslist in 2014 to arrange a sexual encounter involving Michelle. And they figured this out because it was linked to an email that was Ian's email. Now, in 2016, Craigslist was being used again, but this time it was being used as a part of an alleged attempt to frame Michelle.
Men responded to the advertisements. Some were directed toward the Diaz condo. One responder was a 17-year-old boy. The purpose, according to prosecutors, was to create the appearance that Michelle was orchestrating increasingly dangerous sexual encounters, like rape fantasies, involving Angela.
And that's important because the alleged scheme wasn't just creating messages, it was manufacturing events. Someone was trying to turn a digital lie into physical evidence, and they were willing to set up a rape fantasy and have this woman raped if this story is true.
Yes. And on June 24th, Angela reported that she had been attacked. She told police a stranger had come to the condo. The allegations were serious. Police responded, and Michelle became the suspect. But investigators would eventually uncover surveillance footage that contradicted important parts of Angela's account.
On June 24th, Michelle was arrested. Police took her electronic devices, her phone, her laptop, iPad, and she cooperated. She showed investigators the communication she believed had been spoofed.
She thought the devices might finally prove what she'd been saying, but instead, she became the person sitting in jail. She had no idea that Angela had been attacked. She had no idea that the messages were still going through. She had no idea about Angela until she was served the restraining order, which happened not long before the attack.
Right.
So she had no idea when the police came to her door. She thought that they were coming because she had left the voicemails and they were coming to investigate that it wasn't her.
Right.
So imagine being just completely left fielded like that.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle's bail was set at $1 million. She was facing serious felony charges and the investigation continued. If she was prosecuted, she was facing life. But then something happened that should have immediately raised questions. The messages didn't stop. So I don't know about you, but that raises immediate flags for me about the
Immediate for
police
me.
because it's like, what were y'all doing? What were you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't your job.
What was your point?
It wasn't your job. That's not what you were doing. Michelle's devices were in police custody, yet threatening communications continued. One particularly important email was sent while Michelle was outside the police station after her release on bail. She did not have her devices. They were still in police possession. Yet another threatening email was sent to Angela.
That should change the question. That's just crazy. It isn't could Michelle have sent it? It's how could Michelle have sent it?
How? And I mean, I'm not a police officer. I don't have any kind of degree or not in that area or a badge. So I could probably buy one on Amazon because my detective skills are detecting that that's some BS. Something isn't right.
Right. I'm going to need for you to show me how that's done. If you're saying that's done.
Right. But the case continued to escalate. Michelle was arrested again. This time, she remained incarcerated, and ultimately, she spent 88 days in jail.
And that was sad when she was saying in the ID when we were watching that her dad was like, we can use that money to get you a great lawyer and get you out of there, but you're going to have to sit in there for a while. And she's like,
oh, or we could get you a lawyer.
Yeah, which one do you want? And she's like, okay, I can handle it. But she, of course, breaks down. This poor lady. I feel so bad for her.
Crazy part is when we were watching, here's the thing I've learned about Netflix. They are some messy bitches because let me tell you something. They're going to set up the scene to make whoever look guilty as shit until the very last minute because she's not the first woman that I've watched in a Netflix documentary. And I was like, that hoe is
So
guilty.
did.
Ain't no way she didn't do it. And now I'm like, she's a horrible person. The L. And then you flip it. Now I'm like, now I feel bad
Oh
because I done talked
man,
about this woman.
they set you up for Netflix. They set you up, boy.
Writing the scripts, great job, but how dare you? You
How
know,
dare you do that to us? That was an emotional. I felt bad. I was feeling so guilty. If I had just shut up for 10 more minutes.
yes, now I'm part of the problem. I don't want to be part of the problem. Don't write
I
your
don't
script
wanna
so
be.
well where I think she did it. Don't make her look guilty because she made herself look guilty. Like, don't do that. Okay. Michelle was watching her life disappear. She had gone from engaged to trying to escape an abusive relationship to fighting over a condo to being portrayed as a dangerous stalker. And now she was behind bars. But while Michelle was in jail, the evidence was beginning to move. And the crazy part is when she got arrested, the whatever state they were in, I can't remember off the top of my head. That year she got the craziest person award or something like that. They really she was one of the most hated people and all of this was going on. They like literally called her the crazy ex-girlfriend all over the news. Like it was so bad.
And that you heard the dad talk about it on the ID show. I love Netflix documentaries, but this ID one that we watched, Toxic, it was good because you got to like listen to the dad talk. You got to hear more about that side of the story. It's more focused on Michelle's experience.
Yeah. Rather than just trying to fit her in so the story is good.
Right.
Investigators began finding inconsistencies in Angela's story. The pregnancy was one of them. Evidence surfaced showing that Angela had manipulated pregnancy tests, and the story she had presented to police began to unravel.
Now investigators had a different problem. If Angela was capable of fabricating one part of the story, what else had she been fabricating? And she just kept lying and lying and lying. Angela has her own set of problems.
Her own set of problems because not only did she lie about the pregnancies, then she told Ian she was sick and she had cancer. Never had cancer.
Never had cancer.
Never had cancer. She told him that she was a lawyer or did some kind of something in the law field. She never been to law school. She didn't even have a job.
She wasn't even going to work. She was lying about going to work.
Lied about going to work. Ian's best friend, I cannot remember that woman's name, but she wanted Ian. She wanted his draws. She would have put them on her forehead and sniffed the booty section.
Here's the thing. She was annoying me, not because she wants Ian, which she obviously does. That's your business. But she kept trying to set it up like we're just friends. And I'm sure maybe they are because, definitely not because she doesn't want to be a part of
Well,
it.
she clearly was not everything that he was looking for.
Clearly, she was the one woman in town that was not everything he was looking for. But every time she would talk about, she was telling her story, it was me and Ian or Ian and I, and it was always them. I guess it's because they were actually doing the things at the same time. But it's just the way that she said it. It's so clear this woman wants that man.
Yeah, you'll see. If you watch the Netflix Toxic Love Story or Toxic Love, you'll see. It's good. It's juicy. I recommend it. I also recommend the ID Toxic series. It was episode 2, season 1. It was great. It's called Three's a Crowd. Anywho, investigators obtained warrants for the relevant email accounts and Craigslist activity, and the digital evidence began pointing somewhere unexpected. Some of the threatening emails had originated from the IP address associated with the Anaheim condo, the home where Ian and Angela lived. Why are you trying not to laugh? The words are right over your face, so I can see.
No, I'm just laughing at these people. Like,
yeah, he was stupid. To be a U.S. Marshal, he's dumb as hell.
A U.S. Marshal.
The home where Ian and Angela lived. Others were connected to Angela's phone. Another device was located at Angela's father's home in Phoenix. The evidence wasn't pointing towards Michelle. It was pointing towards the people accusing her.
And they said in the ID one that something came from the Department of Defense IP or the right.
The emails came from his phone, it was his DOJ issued
DOJ.
work phone that he had sent one of these emails from.
But
From the beginning, Michelle had been asking investigators to trace the digital evidence. Eventually, after at least 88 days, they did. Yeah. And the technology began telling a completely different story.
This is one of the most important moments in the case, really, because Michelle didn't know exactly who was framing her. She couldn't tell police it's Ian's computer or it's Angela's phone. She didn't have that information. She simply knew it wasn't me. And she kept asking them to look.
I mean, obviously, Michelle had an inkling of who the hell it was.
Yes.
So by October 2016, Michelle was released, thankfully. She had spent 88 days in custody. And on January 9, 2017, the Orange County District Attorney announced that the charges against Michelle had been dismissed and that she had been fully exonerated. Thank you. You arrested me, kept me in jail for 88 days, but you exonerated me. Boy, get out of here.
Get out of my face. Get out of my face on TV at your news conference.
Yeah. In front of the courthouse.
In front of the courthouse.
Bump you and your mama.
So at least she was free. But the investigation wasn't finished because now the question was, who had done this? Can I just say something right here? I just want to say this. I wait till the end because we're going to discuss it.
Angela became the focus of the investigation. The pregnancy had been fabricated. The Craigslist evidence was pointing towards the condo. The digital communications weren't coming from Michelle. And investigators found evidence that Angela had staged aspects of the story. And here's one of the aspects. Where they stay at the condominium, there are at least 24 cameras. 24. They're very well protected over there. None of the cameras picked up anybody coming. When the night she reported that she was attacked, they captured nobody coming or leaving.
And I think that's amazing that those cameras that Ian was so hot to put up around this condo helped, at least in part, to prove that nobody came to that condo.
Well, the crazy part, it wasn't even the cameras that Ian put up. These are the cameras for the property.
Oh, okay.
And the attack supposedly happened in the garage, which if it had happened, they would have seen it because one of the cameras pointed towards like the little drive part where their garage was. So that's a lie. Angela ultimately pleaded guilty to charges connected to the scheme, as she should have, but she was only sentenced to 5 years in prison.
And this is where Michelle's story doesn't end, because Michelle has spent years telling people that Ian was involved. And now investigators had to answer a much harder question. Was Angela acting alone, or was Ian involved too?
And let me tell you, for the majority, for almost all of this, the freaking Anaheim Police Department and the U.S. Marshals refused to believe that Ian was involved in this. Police covering their ass. Police
and like Michelle said, they arrested Angela, which they should have, but nobody was talking about
nobody.
Ian. Even when she's saying, "Look at him," nobody wants to look at him. The dad is going through looking at all this stuff, and he's like, everything comes back to it has his footprint on it. Everything has Ian's footprint on it.
Nobody focused on Ian until an outside DOJ investigator stepped in and looked at him. I think his name was Mike something. I don't want to lie. But he was the officer that came in and he was like, what she's saying makes sense. None of this evidence is matching up. Yes, Angela's crazy and she was guilty of her own stuff, but she's not the one that could have done this because, first of all, what they were saying in the emails, one email, it ended with saying, like, it was signed, her nickname, Mishy. Her nickname. Nobody knew about that nickname but Ian. So Angela could not have known that unless he was helping her write it, right? The DOJ phone, the fact that it was actively connected, Angela wouldn't have had access to that.
Right.
So the fact that they ignored this man for so long pisses me off.
And it pisses me off because in things like that little nickname at the bottom of the email, sending things or whatever he was doing from his DOJ phone, either it's almost like he's wagging it in her face that he can get away with it because he knows that they're not gonna look at
Yeah,
him
and
unless they're forced to.
so the crazy part was for the rape fantasy post he put on Craigslist, they make you verify that like this is a consenting thing, you're actively wanting to do this. So they had to send him a verification code to his phone and went to
Mhm.
his cell phone, his personal cell phone. He responded to it, obviously giving it access because the rape fantasy post was on
Was
Craigslist.
on the
Clearly you
Mhm.
approved it, but he said he didn't do it. He got the message, but he never opened it. That doesn't make any sense to me. You're just not being smart. And as soon as he did it, the next day he went and got a new phone.
Mhm. Like they but like that's gonna erase it. I don't even understand why he went to do that. If it's your phone, they're gonna know that's your phone, even if you don't have that phone
That's what
anymore.
I'm saying. But it's all of these trying to cover it up. You can see
Yeah.
all of this. And the dad, while Michelle was in jail, had all of this evidence. And he was like, I'm telling you, like, here you go. This is where it's not making
I've
sense.
done all the work.
And they requested to have, what was it? Whatever information is they send where you can see all the backlogs on Craigslist where it shows you where the
Oh, yeah.
IP address and stuff is coming from. The police
Mhm.
requested all this information during the investigation for Michelle, but they never actually opened it and reviewed it to see where the messages were coming from. It wasn't
Right.
until after this and after Angela was arrested that they actually opened this information to even see that Ian was involved. And like I said, it wasn't until the DOJ investigator got involved. This wasn't even trash ass law enforcement. Not all of you, but this situation was trash ass. Like, you got to take the L on it. The federal investigation eventually focused on Ian. Investigators reconstructed the communications finally. They examined email accounts, digital devices, and followed IP addresses. They examined Craigslist activity and they looked at the evidence surrounding the impersonation of Michelle. According to the prosecutors, Ian and Angela used falsely registered email accounts. They used VPNs to conceal internet activity and they commuted through encrypted messaging services. Ian deleted email accounts associated with the scheme.
And that matters because this wasn't just a spontaneous lie. The evidence presented by prosecutors showed deliberate efforts to conceal who was actually behind the communications. He just trash. She's just trash.
And she's
Ew.
trashed for going along with this and for all of her own lies.
Right.
In 2021, Ian Diaz was federally indicted. The charges included conspiracy to commit cyberstalking, perjury, obstruction of a federal proceeding. In March 2023, a federal jury convicted Ian. The evidence presented at trial connected him to the conspiracy, and the jury found him guilty of the federal charges. On June 30th of 2023, Ian Diaz was sentenced to 121 months in federal prison. That is 10 years and 1 month. He also received 3 years of supervised release.
So the man who had once portrayed Michelle as the dangerous ex-fiancé was now a convicted federal criminal.
Yep, 88 days is the number. But to Michelle, it was a portion of her life that couldn't be returned. She went into jail accused of crimes she hadn't committed. She came out knowing that someone had deliberately built a false version of her, and then she had to rebuild it all. Michelle later pursued civil litigation related to her arrest and the investigation, as she should. Good job, Michelle. Go get your bag.
Yes.
The litigation raised questions about how police handled the evidence and the investigation. They didn't handle it.
They didn't handle it.
The white man said, my girlfriend did it. And they said, bet. That's what happened.
We believe you.
Yeah, as you should. Some claims survived while others were dismissed, and the city of Anaheim eventually settled with Michelle. Michelle continued her education, she built a career, she became a mother, and eventually began speaking publicly about what happened.
And that brings us to 2026 because Michelle's story has now been revisited in Netflix documentary, A Toxic Love Story.
Revisits Michelle's relationship with Ian, the abuse, the breakup, the condo. Angela, the fake digital identity, the Craigslist scheme, the investigation, and the years Michelle spent trying to rebuild her life.
But what makes this story especially disturbing is the connection between the beginning and the end. Think about what Ian allegedly did during that relationship. He monitored Michelle, he controlled her appearance, he installed cameras in their home, he pressured her sexually. He used Craigslist to find a stranger for a sexual encounter involving her, and then he filmed it. After Michelle left, Craigslist became part of the alleged scheme used to make Michelle look like the aggressor.
And the whole time they were doing this investigation, Ian kept claiming that he had no idea how to use Craigslist. He said he used it maybe one time to like sell a TV.
Sell a TV,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. And I think that that's the part that's easiest to miss. The story isn't just Michelle was framed. The larger story is about control. It started as Ian trying to control Michelle during their relationship, her movements, communication, and so forth, and eventually led to him trying to control the story about what was happening, who police believed, what evidence they saw, and what identity appeared up behind the emails, and also who was portrayed as the victim. At first, investigators had a story that seemed to make sense. Michelle was Ian's angry ex fiance. There was a condo dispute. She had written 2 angry messages. Angela was now receiving threatening emails. So then the strangers were showing up at the condo. She had written angry messages. Michelle became the obvious suspect. A person can look suspicious. A story can sound believable. A victim can appear convincing. And yet, none of those things replace evidence.
Michelle didn't have all the answers, but she kept asking questions to find them. And eventually they did. So, do you think the abuse Michelle described changed the way she was perceived later? Because the angry messages she had sent in, they were real.
I definitely think that once Michelle was able to get her story out and tell what it was actually like to be in a relationship with Ian, that the perspective of her was changed. Because
I think because, like, for speaking even about what we were just saying, how just watching, at least when she first came on in the Netflix documentary, I was like, okay, yeah, she did this.
yeah, me too. I definitely was like, she's guilty.
She's guilty. But as we were watching the ID show about her, all I could think was how much this, not the story itself, but the way that it's working out seems very much like the Lindsay Clancy case with her husband.
Same thing. I was thinking the same damn thing.
Doesn't it?
The same thing. And the fact that nobody's looking at that either.
Nobody's looking at
Nobody's
him.
looking at that nigga neither. And guess what? His ass was guilty. So let me tell you something else.
When I was listening, I was like, why does this sound familiar?
Yeah. Okay, so at what point do you think that the investigators should have started questioning the original theory? Because I feel like, maybe it should have been when Michelle asked them to trace the IP addresses since she was the one that was being accused, or maybe after her messages were taken and then the messages still kept coming. I mean, that would have been a good point for me. But what do you think? Because
those are both very good points to do it. I think you should start when the person makes the complaint that all of these things are happening. At the very least, you should be looking at the complainant's devices so that you can see where they're coming from, so you can find the person who's sending them. So I think we wouldn't have even gotten to the rest of it if the police had done their job at that point. But they were too busy trying to protect Ian. I don't even know that they knew he was doing anything necessarily, but they were just taking what he said and going with it. And then as the story went on, that's when they started covering his ass.
yeah, they took his word as law instead of just like they normally would.
Doing the police job and investigating it.
Right.
And here's the hardest question. How much easier is it to frame someone when you already know their private history, their relationship, their writing style, the things they fear, the things that you tell people when you're in a relationship?
Clearly, it's very easy. Once again, Lindsay Clancy, I rest my case. I mean, even this, because Ian framed 2 women, Two women. Angela was she was involved at some points, like towards the end, but at the beginning, once, like when she first started calling, making all the police reports, she had no idea Ian was involved in any of this. She just took his word when he said, "It's my crazy ex-girlfriend." So she was being a good wife to him or whatever. He framed Michelle first and then set it up, got Angela involved. And then when he figured out that things were crumbling, set Angela up to take the fall so he wouldn't go to jail. And he turned her in.
Yeah.
He turned her in. He told the policia, "Look at Angela.
Check her out. I think she's doing all of this.
Check her out." That blew my damn mind. He was like, "I'm a liar." And when he was bamboozled by Angela's ass, he was like, "Well, she done manipulated me."
Man, he had an intervention set up and
A
everything.
whole intervention. Show me your board. Show me your
And
board.
the people were there and they were mad, as they should have been, but they were there with Ian, who was the biggest liar in the world.
Lying, and then had the audacity to talk about, "You lied to all these people." I mean, sir, good day.
Okay, now we want to hear from you. What part of this case shocked you the most? Was it the abuse that Michelle described? The cameras inside the condo? I mean, any of these are great questions.
Let us know in the comments. If you liked it, definitely make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Follow us on all the socials so you don't miss any updates or any of our future episodes. Other than just telling us about this episode, if there is another episode you would like us to cover, leave it in the comments. We do need the reviews and the shares and all of the extra. Click all the buttons you see on the screen except report or delete. Yes, because we need all of the encounters so other people can find us and we can get out there. We love talking to you guys. We've been seeing all of the views come in, which have been insane.
Finding our community.
Yes,
we're finding our
all
community.
of the conversations happening in our comments. We go through and we read it, and we are loving it. So please come in.
Yes, definitely come subscribe on YouTube. That's where all of our videos are posted.
I'm Zalle.
And I'm Nicholle.
And we'll see you next time.
And we'll see you next time.
We cannot do that together. Did it go at the same time? Be a coffee hot.
And your theory's coming.
See you later, co-conspirators.
Bye.